Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. I hate my mother in law. I always knew she didn't like me, and it was really hard for her to accept me as her daughter in law. But what she did this time really took things to extremes. That's why I lost all reasoning and finally aired her dirty laundry out. Now, I may come across as the type of person that's really sweet and caring, and you might even compare me to a harmless kitten. But my mother taught me to fight dirty when people are being an ass for no reason. And this time, my mother in law really decided to be the biggest a hole in the family, targeting me as the harmless cat that wouldn't scratch back. My husband works in the film industry as a technical staff and has to fly all over the world for various shoots. One good thing out of this is that sometimes he'd call me or the whole family out to visit him and go sightseeing. And just like the countless other trips, this month our trip to Fiji was planned for a while. Everything was ready, and me and my mother in law even went to the airport on time. I was just thanking the traffic gods that we didn't get stuck and were barely able to make it to get through customs and board the plane. We unloaded all our bags and I counted to make sure that everything was there and we didn't forget anything. Once sure, I went inside along with mother in law. She told me to drop off our luggage at the baggage counter. I separated my hand luggage with pre checked in bags and asked her to do the same. Then I told her to go ahead with a security check while I dropped off the luggage. When I came back, I went through the security check myself and proceeded to find my mother in law. I saw her from a distance, and she was looking around for something. I asked her what was up, and she told me that one of her handbags was missing. She said that it contained her diabetes medicine and she can't leave without it. I told her to calm down and remember if she had accidentally left it with the other luggage. She said she couldn't remember and asked me to go see if it was there. I went back and checked with the person near the baggage counter if any luggage was unmarked or went overweight, as one of our bags was missing. But she told me nothing like that was caught. I dejectedly made my way back to mother in law, but before I could get through the security check again, the airport security asked me to come with them. I asked them what it was about, and they told me to just go with them and everything will be explained. Once they took me to some kind of private holding facility, they told me that they got a report from a woman who overheard me using the words gun and drugs and was concerned that I'm a terrorist. They need to make sure that I'm not hiding anything. I was furious. When did I even make a call? I barely had time to check in before our flights, and who was the woman who reported these things? Then the thought that my mother in law is exactly the person to do something like this struck my mind. I told the officers to go ahead with their investigation and I'll fully cooperate with them. It took 15 hours for me to be fully clear, and once it was over, I showed the officer who had told me about the woman a picture of my mother in law and asked him if that was the person who reported me. When he said yes, a sudden wave of rage came over me. I told him that woman is my mother in law and then walked out of there. I was furious and raging and just so angry at my mother in law that I couldn't just sit back anymore. I had always turned a blind eye to her slanders and her toxicity towards me because I barely saw her, but this was enough. I needed to teach her a lesson, so I planned my revenge and made sure that she'll regret ever so much as glaring at me. The first thing I did was make sure that her precious suburban neighborhood society knew exactly what kind of cheap person she was. I was actually invited to a few of these parties when I occasionally visited here with my husband. I know they all like to play pretend and outdo themselves when it comes to showing off. My mother in law did the same, passing off the cheap bakery treats she buys from a local seller and telling everyone how it's all from a famous chef. I blew out all of our secrets when I invited everyone over and told them exactly where the savory sweets came from. I also exposed the Chinese vase my mother in law has supposedly imported from China to be a mass produced product on Etsy. When I was satisfied that her lies had been revealed and her reputation was ruined, I decided to land the final blow. As I was already at her house, I waited for my father in law to return home. When he came back, he asked me how come I didn't leave as I was supposed to catch a plane back to Seattle that day. I told him there was something weighing on me that he needed to know. I told him that I recently found out that my mother-in-law had an affair with one of the assistant directors when we went to watch the shooting in Hawaii. I told him that my husband had told me about it and he heard it from one of the set staff who was responsible for props and caught them doing it in the prop room. My husband wanted to keep this a secret because he didn't wish to be the person who brought troubles in their marriage, but I had no such obligations and I would like to see mother-in-law suffer after what she put me through at the airport. I left her house the next day after airing out all her dirty laundry. Her pretentious little life would be in shambles once she returns, and boy, I can't wait to see it. But still, I felt like I went a little overboard and I might have hurt my husband in the process by revealing the truth about mother-in-law cheating on her husband. I regret that part a little, so I wanted to ask, am I being an a-hole here? After a week, yesterday, my mother-in-law was supposed to return home. This week, I found out that my mother-in-law told my husband I didn't go to Fiji because I was tired of traveling all over the world just to meet my husband for a few days and told her that I didn't feel like it's worth the trouble anymore. That lying woman actually fought as if that would create a misunderstanding between us. I had to assure my husband for about 2 hours that I love our life and that I couldn't visit because I missed my plane, and it was all because of a misunderstanding. I didn't think it was right to explain everything to him over the phone, especially after how I had already revealed one of his secrets and told my father-in-law about his cheating wife. My mother-in-law should have reached home yesterday night, and now I'm just eagerly waiting for the call I'm sure to receive after she finds out the mess that was waiting for her. I'll update here once I get to see her reaction. Holy hell, I did not think that my mother-in-law would actually show up to my house. I was kind of glad she did because I got to see the rage on her face as she relives the mess that is her life right now. When I politely invited her in, the murderous look she gave me was all the satisfaction I needed from her. She came inside and started shouting immediately. She told me what an absolute jerk I am and how I had no right to do that to her. She told me I'll actually be hit by karma and I should be ashamed that I caused the strife in the family. She called me all sorts of names and said I do not deserve her son and that she knew from the beginning sooner or later I was going to show my true colors. She was almost ready to slap me, but somehow she held herself back. But I was angry again. All the buried emotions of ignoring her behavior came pouring out, and I told her she's lucky I only revealed her secrets because if I really wanted to harm her, I could have pressed charges of false accusations on her after the stunt she pulled on me at the airport. Then I kicked her out of my house. I actually thought that doing this to her would make me feel better, but I just feel worse. So it's been 2 months since my last update here, and a lot has happened since then. My mother-in-law was fighting a lot with my father-in-law because of the affair she had, and that I told on her to my father-in-law. I thought it was a one-time thing, but it turns out that she was still seeing that person, and she confessed this to my father-in-law. After finding this out, he kicked her out of the house, and she has been living with her sister since then. I went and talked to my father-in-law last week because I was feeling guilty for being the reason for their fights, and he told me that I had nothing to be sorry for. He said this wasn't the first time this had happened, but it sure as hell was the last time because they are separated now, and he had no intentions of getting back together with that woman. I don't know how to feel about this. They still hadn't told my husband about this and have asked me to keep it a secret until he returns home because my father-in-law wanted to be the one to tell him face to face about it. I know they had been lying to him for a while now and had told him that they had worked things out between them, but I feel like an unfaithful wife in the middle of all this. Finally, my husband came home last week and had met with my father-in-law 2 days ago. He found out about his parents' separation, was actually pretty understanding about it. But when he found out that I was the one who created this whole mess, he was pretty mad. He asked me why I had done all this, and I told him about all the things that had happened at the airport and even before then. I apologized to him and told him that I already feel guilty for what I did. I never meant anything to escalate this much. Thankfully, my husband was understanding about the whole situation and said that sooner or later it was going to come out. We are not completely okay yet, but with time, I'm sure we'll be fine. YTA. First of all, I agree that your mother in law was an a hole and she needed to be taught some manners, but what you did was an absolute a hole move, and no one can change my mind. In order to take her down, you not only hurt your father in law, but you also used information your husband shared with you thinking he could trust you. That makes you an a hole. EAH. I don't know why both the OP and her mother in law were behaving like middle school children when their issues could have been solved with communication. Both of them are a-holes who created this whole mess and completely deserve it. I, 19 female, have a cousin, 27 female, who got engaged about 6 months ago. During the wedding preparations, my cousin mentioned wanting to buy a diamond necklace to match her reception gown. My aunt asked me if I could let her borrow the diamond necklace I had obtained from my great grandmother after her death. Everyone in my family knew how important that necklace is to me. It was the last thing I have from my great grandmother. I flat out refused and told her that the necklace is very delicate and I didn't want to share it. I gave her the option of using another necklace that I had gotten from my grandfather, but she insisted on having that specific one only. I strictly forbade anyone from touching that necklace. I thought I had made it very clear that day. In the reception, I noticed the same necklace on my cousin. I was furious but chose not to say anything as it was her wedding and I didn't want to ruin it. When I asked my mother, she said my father had tried to stop my cousin from asking for the necklace, but she kept pestering him till he finally gave up. I was angry but couldn't blame my dad because my cousin could be a pain in the ass. After the reception was done and the party had started, I silently took my necklace and left the place. Yesterday, after everyone had sobered up, I got a call from my crying cousin who accused me of stealing her jewels. Her husband took the phone and threatened to press charges. I calmly explained to him that it rightfully belonged to me and she had borrowed it from me. He went on to call me a liar and said that I was the one who borrowed her jewels. My mother, who heard the whole conversation, had enough and cut the call. My relatives said that I was wrong for silently running away with it and said that I was an a-hole for not sharing what didn't belong to me from the start. Yeah, I might have been an a-hole for not sharing, but was it wrong of me to take what was mine and leave? I genuinely don't understand what I did wrong. So I do want to confront my dad, but I don't know how to. I have never confronted him in my life. Like, should I ask him to give me the key to the safe? Or ask him not to give my things away like that, or what? My dad has apologized, yet he is still not sure about letting me have my safe and my jewelry. Aunt called and asked not to press charges. Let's see how things end. NTA, you're a lot nicer than I would have been. I'd have, at the very least, had some words with my father about it. Okay, sure, you could have told them you were taking them back, but I don't understand where everyone's getting off about them being rightfully your cousins. If you're certain it's the right necklace and yours is missing, now replaced back, then I don't see what the fuss is about. I know you're young, but I'd be securing anything valuable like that from now on. No one should be able to access it anymore. Your father shouldn't have given it to her, let alone given it and not said anything. Buy a small safe and keep them yourself as soon as you can. It's too easy to see someone borrowing that and never giving it back. NTA, you're 19. Get your own safety and move everything into it. It's your property, and your father shouldn't have been the one to hand it off to your cousin. I'd also insist that your father call up both your cousin and her husband to inform them that any attempt to press charges is going to be met with a cease and desist order. Sounds like your cousin has been jelly about these things all along and used her wedding to snipe what she felt was more entitled to than you. She's 9 years older, so she probably feels some kind of way about it. But talk to your father, get your things, and get your own safe. Clearly, he can't be trusted not to cave into pressure and gift or loan your things out to people after you've already said no. My sister, 22, has been living with me, 25 female, for 3 years now. I told her she can stay with me for as long as she wants, as long as she follows my rules. One of which is that she can't have men over. She can let people in, but they can't stay overnight. I've been very lenient, TBH. She would have friends, male and female, over and let them stay overnight without my permission. I didn't say anything because I knew all her friends and I didn't really think it's a big deal. Until last week, she brought a stranger, M, to our home without my knowledge. I was home all right. She made sure I was fully asleep before she let the man in. She probably thought I wouldn't know and she wouldn't get caught, but this morning I woke up really early and I noticed there's an extra pair of shoes that don't belong to me or my sisters, so I already knew there's another person in our house at that very moment. I confronted my sister after the stranger left and told her that what she did was not cool and outright disrespectful, and that if she ever does it again, I'm kicking her out. My mom thinks it's not a big deal and that I should just let it slide because she's young and enjoying her life. I don't want to be the boring sister, but they both knew how traumatized I was when someone tried to sneak into my home while I was home alone, which is why I'm very wary of welcoming strangers. She lives with me for free, and that's fine. After all, she's family. But if she disrespects me again, I'd have no qualms of kicking her out. Thank you all so much for your advice and for giving me a real talk. I guess I needed to hear it. She's my only sibling, so I kind of feel the need to provide for her, but I guess I should have given her some tough love. We've talked, and she's moving back to our mom. She has a job, but she got used to the idea of me paying for everything, which is partly my fault for enabling her. Learn my lesson. She'll always be family, but she needs to grow up. NTA, your house, your rules. Sure, your sister's an adult, can have her guests come over, etc., but it's common courtesy to let other people at home know there would be guests. It's generally a bad idea to bring strangers home. She knew why you have that rule and yet decided to break it. If your mother thinks it's not a big deal, maybe the sister should move back in with her and bring strangers over. Let's see how long it takes for mommy, the dearest, to get angry. NTA, your sister is 22, not 12. I think you're being extremely generous in letting her live there for free, even while she continues to break some very basic common courtesy rules. You have a very valid reason for not wanting strangers in your home. If your mom and sister can't have empathy and compassion, that's on them. You need to tell your mom that it's your house, your rules. Either your sister follows that or she'll be finding a new place to live. You have no reason to feel bad at all. Your mom and sister are trying to manipulate you and your feelings. Please don't let them do that to you. You don't deserve it. NTA, since your mom thinks she's just young, so let her do what she wants, which is ridiculous, BTW, why doesn't mom take her in? Your sister is endangering you both. You're two girls alone, and bringing some strange guy in isn't a smart move. Why didn't she go to the guy's place? He might have no place of his own, or he lives with a woman already. Since your sister refuses to take your rules seriously, you should seriously have her find her own place so she can have people over all the time.